I'm tired of shooters. It feels like shooters nowadays just don't scratch that itch anymore, and the immense AAA greed this genre has developed doesn't help. So to fix that, I decided to play every shooter I could get my hands on. Some games were okay, some were good, and some were really fun, but nothing can be compared to when I played Holy shit, dude. I had always heard that ULTRAKILL was a good game, but after playing it, I never want to go back to any multiplayer shooter ever again. Simply put, ULTRAKILL is a fast-paced, low-poly boomer shooter that is fun as hell to play. You play as V1, a machine capable of killing anything in its way, as it descends into the layers of hell. Mankind is dead, blood is fuel, hell is full, and you're a bloodthirsty war machine. Wait, that's the wrong. Every second playing this game is just pure adrenaline-fueled action that just works perfectly. Which brings me to my first point on why ULTRAKILL is one of the best shooters ever made. The core mechanics synergize perfectly with each other. We can split them up into three systems: healing, weapons, and movement. First, focusing on healing. The only ways you can heal in ULTRAKILL are blood and parrying. Yup, just like in the tagline, blood is literally fuel, and you have to get covered in it to restore your health. Parrying is also pretty self-explanatory. Get the timing right, and you can send that shit right back to where it came from. And not just projectiles. Pretty much anything in this game can be parried. Even your own bullets. Speaking of bullets, oh my god, the weapons are amazing. When you load up the first level, the game starts you off with a revolver. Then, over the course of multiple floors, you get a shotgun, a nail gun, a rail cannon, a rocket launcher, and 2 new arms. At the time of making this video, all the guns have 3 colored variants that change the secondary fire of the weapon, and the first 3 have an alternate variant that reworks the gun entirely. And of course, we can't forget the 3 arms, and the 4th one that Hikita, the creator of the game, will add in a future update. Now, these weapons are great on their own, but they really show their potential when you use them together. Take the Marksman Revolver, most likely the first variant you'll get in the game. Throw a coin in the air and shoot it to have it ricochet to the nearest enemy weak point. Simple, right? No. Coins ricochet off each other, so throw multiple coins into the air and hit multiple enemies. But wait, you can also punch them or use your grappler arm to keep them in the air so you can throw out more. Never mind, fuck the revolver. The rail cannon can also hit coins, so throw out all your coins into the air and blast that shit. But what if I stand next to a boss, throw a coin through the boss, and then another one above me, switch to my rail cannon, shoot the boss hitting the first coin that goes back through the boss to the second coin, and that shoots the boss again for a total of 3 rail cannon shots in less than 3 seconds?
That's a lot of damage!
I hope you can see what I'm getting at. Those are just 2 guns out of the 24 variations, and that's probably not even all the combos you can do with these 2. I can go on and on about different techs and synergies like projectile boosting, rocket riding, and whatever the fuck is going on in this video. But I'll stop here because if I actually went in depth on this topic, this video would be hours longer. I mean, there are piles of videos on YouTube about this type of stuff. It just doesn't end. The last thing I'll briefly mention are the arms, because they also play a significant role in ULTRAKILL's gunplay. The Feedbacker lets you parry projectiles. The Knuckle Blaster is slower and can't parry, but does more damage and fires a shockwave after use. And the Whiplash pulls small enemies to you and pulls you into larger enemies, which makes moving around all that much better. Speaking of moving around, if you're enjoying this video, how about you move to that subscribe button? But seriously though, it helps me out a ton since this is my first video, and makes sure you don't miss out on future content. Now, let's get back on topic. Once again, speaking of moving around, as the third core mechanic of the game, we have the movement. When you first start, the game immediately gives you quite a few abilities like dashing, sliding, ground slamming, wall jumping, and later on in the game, the Whiplash we previously mentioned. Movement abilities have their own tech, just like the weapons like slide jumping, slam storing, and skimming, just to name a few. Combining these 3 systems, ULTRAKILL creates one of the best and most addictive core gameplay loops I have ever seen in gaming. And this near to perfect gameplay loop is only enhanced by the style meter. The style meter is the bow on top that improves the already great system that ULTRAKILL has. The way it works is that everything you do gives you style points based on how cool it is. This can increase your style rank from destructive all the way up to ULTRAKILL rank. We also have score multipliers that increase your points based on your airtime and how often you switch weapons. Every time you get hit though, your rank goes down by 1, and then deducts 5 times the amount of damage you took in style points. The higher your rank is, the faster it goes away. But it's not entirely for show. It also dictates how much hard damage you take. Hard damage is a mechanic in Ultrakill, wherein a portion of damage taken from an enemy attack temporarily reduces V1's maximum health. I stole that straight from the wiki, by the way. The higher your rank, the less hard damage you take, and at Ultrakill rank, it is negated completely. At the end of the level, your style rank will be shown along two others: how fast you completed the level, and how many enemies you killed. And all that will be summed up into one definitive ranking for that level. On top of the other mechanics, this system helps the game stay fresh and forces you to switch weapons, try cool tricks, and approach things in a way you normally wouldn't. The game rewards and congratulates you for playing in a risky way. This also complements the blood healing system really well. You can play it safe and stay far from the enemies at first, but once you slip up and get hit, you're gonna have to get close to the very things you were avoiding just so you can heal. And you can't always just grapple a weak enemy to you, because on difficulties standard and up, the Whiplash will add 50 hard damage to V1's total health when used on an enemy. Although that might feel like a weird feature to add, the Whiplash would simply be too strong without it. There are enemies that apply too much pressure to simply avoid, and ones that force you to get close to hit them, and this ties in perfectly to my next point. The enemies of Ultrakill are one of the game's strongest aspects. None of them feel out of place, and each of them fulfill a clear role. They can all be divided into 4 classes: Husks, Demons, Machines, and Angels. Well, technically 5 if we count Prime Souls, but we'll talk about those guys later. You can divide all these enemies into high priority and low priority enemies. But here's the thing, there's never a definite ranking on who to prioritize first, because it always depends on the situation. Yes, of course, some enemies will always be more dangerous than others. You're never going to target a Streg over a Cerberus, and never a Cerberus over a Mind Flayer. But you're always going to have to adapt based on the situation. This is because every enemy poses a significant threat to the player. Even some of the weakest of the bunch can take a noticeable chunk off of your health. And not all enemies attack you directly. Some exist solely to buff others. For example, let's look at the Idol and the Stalker. Idols are statue-like demons that do not move and cannot attack V1. They make the strongest enemy in the room and only a punch can kill them. Stalkers, on the other hand, are husks that upon spawning slowly walk towards other enemies and explode, covering them in sand, making it so V1 cannot heal off of those enemies anymore. They will only attack the player if no other enemies are left, and will do minuscule damage if they succeed in doing so. Although both of these enemies don't directly pose a threat to the player, they're extremely dangerous to ignore, because doing so makes fighting every other enemy much harder. All of this isn't groundbreaking enemy AI or anything, but it's a very well thought out design that keeps the combat engaging. The enemies in Ultrakill are all designed to overwhelm the player and force them to improve, and no enemies do this better than the bosses. The bosses of Ultrakill are some of the most fun I've fought in a while. From robots to giant corpses to Gabriel. You know, like the guy from the Bible. Ultrakill has a wide variety of bosses that vary from okay to fights that will have you contemplating if you were ever good at video games. Fights like V2 and Gabriel, Judge of Hell, will really give you a run for your money the first time you fight them. My personal favorites are both the Gabriel fights, unless I'm forgetting something.
Creature of steel, my gratitude upon thee for my freedom. But the crimes thy kind have committed against humanity are not forgotten.
And so, before I tear down the cities and crush the armies of heaven, you shall do as an appetizer.
And my punishment.
Come forth, child of man. And
Is
die.
Prime Souls are an incredibly rare occurrence, in which a solar mass has so much power that it no longer requires a husk or a vessel to manifest physically. This is what a Prime Soul is defined as in Ultrakill. Minos Prime and Sisyphus Prime are both Prime Souls, and they are both hard as shit. Minos is the first of the two. The way you get to him is a secret path of 3-1, but only after you've P-ranked every level in the prologue and Act 1. For Sisyphus, it's pretty much the same. You find an entrance in 6-1, and you have to P-rank all of Act 2. Both bosses follow the rule of saying a voice line before performing an attack.
Judgment!
It might seem like this mechanic would trivialize them, but trust me, with how fast you have to react to their attacks, it barely makes a difference. Attacks come at you back to back, and after about 4, they give you a 1 to 2 second window to rest, and after that, it's right back to dodging. This is because Prime Souls are the only bosses to have a stamina system. After performing enough attacks, they need to rest for a bit, but this is all on standard difficulty. On Brutal, the current hardest difficulty in the game, both bosses have infinite stamina when they enter their second phase, and can keep attacking without rest. Am I reading this right? Both fights are the most skill-based fights in the game so far. It's not like the others aren't, but these two are especially good. No matter how difficult they may be, they're fair, and that's what matters. So after looking at these two goobers, you can probably conclude that Ultrakill can be a pretty difficult game, but that shouldn't matter, because it's also extremely accessible. People calling the game hard are usually referring to the brutal difficulty, which is, in fact, considerably harder. Most people like to enjoy the game on standard, and if that's not enough, there's always lower difficulties that in no way take away from the experience. And you can't talk about the Ultrakill experience without mentioning the music. Listen, I'm not a music critic, but when I listen to the music this game has to offer, I just gotta say, it's pretty goated. Seriously though, it is fantastic. To further my point, most of the music I've used for this video is part of the Ultrakill soundtrack. Tracks like the Cybergrind, Order, and Tenebrae Rosso Sangue are some of the most recognizable, but nevertheless, all of them are great. They all go very well with the theme and the vibe you get while playing the game. Speaking of themes, the story is pretty good too. At first it seems pretty basic. I mean, how complex can it be? You're a blue GoPro that goes to hell and kills demons. But if you want to get into it, it is so much more than that. There are lore drops throughout the game and in the console that tell you all about the world of Ultrakill. But one of the biggest highlights of this game is its community. Now there will be some people that tell you that the Ultrakill community is very annoying and that you shouldn't interact with them. I think this is a big exaggeration, because every community is going to have a certain amount of toxic people. But from what I've seen so far, the community behind this game is very positive and filled with people that are so passionate about it. There's a lot of love for this game online. Guides, animations, shitposts, especially shitposts.
I have been crushed by a fucking camera! Fly!
I think Hakita himself put it best in this comment he made. As of now, the game is still in early access and still getting updates to this day. In fact, as of making this video, the trailer for Fraud just released, and it looks unlike anything we've ever seen before. In conclusion, I think Ultrakill is one of the greatest shooters, if not one of the greatest games of our time. So with that said, I have to give a massive shout out to Diorg for inspiring this video, and don't forget to go buy Ultrakill now, because it's truly one of the greatest games you'll ever play. Never mind, there's no robot sex, 0 out of 10.